Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is Monday, June 13th, 2022, and welcome back in to the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Connor Newcomb, and coming up on today's episode, we recap kind of an up and down weekend of Orioles baseball as the O's split a 4-game series in Kansas City against the Royals. Now, specifically, we'll be taking a look at the final 3 games of the series, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, in which the O's did take 2 out of the final 3, including winning the final 2 in the series. And I'll get you my 3 big takeaways from the weekend of Orioles baseball, starting with the starting pitchers finally getting back on track. That's Tyler Wells and Dean Kremer kind of riding the ship for the O's. Then we'll talk about Richie Martin making his 2022 debut for the Orioles and really performing well in his 2 games. And then finally, we talk about Adley Rutschman, who on Saturday finally had his breakout game in the big leagues. We'll cover all that and more as we recap the weekend series against the Royals coming up on this episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
You are Locked On Orioles, your daily Baltimore Orioles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So we're talking Orioles and Royals, a 4-game series in Kansas City, which the 2 teams end up splitting. Royals win the first 2 Thursday and Friday, taking the Thursday game 7-5, which we recapped on Friday's episode. Make sure to go back and listen to that one. So we won't really touch on Thursday night here on this podcast, but Royals came back and won again, 8-1 on Friday night, but the Orioles turned things around, winning 6-4 on Saturday, then winning the series finale 10-7 on Sunday to split the 4-game set. And the Orioles are now 26-35 on the season, on pace for 69 wins this year, which, first of all, is nice. And second of all, pretty good improvement from what they did win last year, which was 52 games. A 17-game improvement. I would definitely take that for the Orioles this year. But I've got my 3 big takeaways from the weekend for the Orioles coming up on this episode, which is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. And before we get started, just want to thank you for making Locked On Orioles your first podcast listen of the day. Of course, we're free and available on all podcast listening platforms. If you do listen somewhere like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review on those apps, that really helps out the pod a lot. And of course, we're here on YouTube as well. Make sure to subscribe to the Locked On Orioles page on YouTube. If you're watching now, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the O's, about the episode. Make sure to like the videos as well. And, we're creeping up on 500 YouTube subscribers here, trying to get to that number. And that's all thanks to you, the listeners. So thanks again for making Locked On Orioles your first podcast listen of the day. And for your first listen today, well, let's recap a weekend series for the O's, specifically the Friday, Saturday, Sunday games, Orioles and Royals. Let's start with my first big takeaway from the weekend is that the starters, at least on Saturday and Sunday, got the O's starting pitching kind of back on track. Because on Friday night, the Orioles suffered another bad start. Bruce Zimmermann got shelled once again. He allowed 7 runs on 10 hits over 4 2/3 innings on Friday night, allowed another 2 homers, 2 Ks and no walks, but it was just not good for Bruce, continuing his struggles. Now, Andy Koska did have a really good piece on Saturday in the Baltimore Sun that you should go check out about how Bruce Zimmermann is making some mechanical changes because he felt like he was tipping his pitches. So he's kind of changed where he sets up his hands when he goes into the set. And he said it's kind of a work in progress. He's continuing to work on it. So hopefully things get better for Bruce. But we're not really going to touch on Bruce's start much more. We'll get into Bruce's struggles later this week here on the pod. But I want to go to Saturday because after Bruce had that bad start, Orioles lose the Friday game 8-1. They had 9 consecutive games without a quality start. Their last quality start before that was May 31st, Monday, May 31st in Boston, when the Orioles finished up that 5-game series with a 10-0 win over the Red Sox, and Tyler Wells went 6 scoreless innings in that game. That was their last quality start. They had gone 9 straight games without one. Well, Tyler Wells stopped the streak on Saturday in the 6-4 win. He goes 6 innings, allowing 3 runs on 5 hits. So yeah, just barely a quality start. You need 6 innings. You need 3 earned runs or less. He did exactly that, 6 innings, 3 earned runs. allowing 5 hits, struck out 4, walked 2, and threw 84 pitches on the day. Wells was hit hard 5 times in that one. And to be honest, 2 walks in a start was kind of weird for Tyler Wells. He actually walked 2 in 1 inning in that start, which is very odd for him, but settled down, found the strike zone after that. And listen, this was not Tyler Wells' best start by any means. He only got 8 whiffs. He did get 4 of them on the slider, which was once again his best pitch on Saturday, but his stuff wasn't playing up to its best. The fastball got hit around. Changeup looked pretty good. Only threw it 10 times. When he threw that changeup, it looked like a solid secondary pitch for Wells. Got one swing and miss. He was really dropping that changeup into the strike zone more often than he usually does. But at the end of the day, when Tyler Wells, who has good stuff, doesn't have his best stuff, he still grinded out a quality start. And that's the reason why the O's won this game. And yes, they get the big hit, the 3-run homer in the 6th from Tyler Nevin that puts them up 4-3 at that time. And then they add on those additional runs, and Jorge Lopez gets the save, and everybody chipped in to get that first win in Kansas City. But the O's were getting some bad starts for 9 straight games, and it was huge for Tyler Wells to go out there and do that. And he's going to continue to build on that, because right now, Bruce Zimmerman was so good for the O's in his first 7 starts of the year. But his last 7 starts have been bad. And easily at the beginning of the year, you would have said John Means is the O's best pitcher. Then as soon as John Means gets Tommy John, you say, well, Bruce Zimmerman is the Orioles' best starting pitcher. There was a while there where you would have said it's Jordan Lyles. But right now, Tyler Wells, I think you can definitively say, is currently the Baltimore Orioles' best starting pitcher. And he showed that once again on Saturday, which was big. So the O's didn't start a streak of quality starts because they did not get one on Sunday from Dean Kremer. But they won the game, and Kremer was still impressive despite not getting a quality start. Now, for Dean Kremer, just his second start of the season. Of course, he pitched last Sunday at home for his 2022 debut after suffering that oblique injury opening weekend against the Rays while he was warming up in the bullpen, and gave up 3 runs over 4 1/3 in that one, a 3-run shot in the first, and then settled in. And this one, things got a little better. Dean Kremer, he pitches into the 6th inning. Now, did not record an out in the 6th. He should have, if not for an error, but goes 5+ innings, allowing 2 runs, just 1 earned on 4 hits, strikes out 2 and walks through 2. Kremer throws 80 pitches and there's 7 hard hit balls against him. But it was a very odd start for Dean Kremer on Sunday. He pitched into the 6th. He kept the pitch count down. I mean, if Richie Martin fields a grounder and makes a cleaner play in the 6th inning, maybe as a double play, Dean Kremer, you could have argued, was kind of close to getting through 6 innings in this game and may have had a quality start, made it back-to-back for the Orioles. But the O's don't make the play, a couple runs score. They end up getting out of the inning. Aiken ends up relieving Kremer in that 6th. But you look at the line, you go, he pitches into the 6th, you give up 1 earned run, you'll take that. He was just very erratic on the day. And you'll get what I mean if you watched his start. There'd be times where he'd try to throw a changeup. There was one point where he tried to throw a changeup and it slipped out of his hand so bad that it flew over Bobby Witt Jr.'s head by 2 feet and went all the way to the backstop in the air. And then he dot a cutter on the outside corner for a strike. And it's not like the changeup was the one pitch, he couldn't throw it. He was still able to throw the changeup for strikes at time to time. It did not have good command at all, but it wasn't like he completely lost it. And there were even other pitches, like the fastball a couple of times. He just airmailed a couple of fastballs too, but then times he was able to command that pitch in the strike zone. So it was just a very erratic game by Kremer. But that kind of brings me to the point that it was impressive that he got through 5 innings and could have gotten through 6. I mean, he clearly relied on the fastballs. It was 80 pitches. He threw 43 4-seamers, 20 cutters, and then just 9 changeups and 8 curveballs on the day. Remember, that curveball used to be kind of the go-to pitch for Dean Kremer. In each of his first 2 starts, it's been his least used pitch of his 4-pitch mix. But to be that erratic, and again, Kansas City Royals lineup, not at all one of the best in baseball, but to be that erratic and still get through 5 where you were pretty close to getting through 6, I'll take that in your second start of the year from Dean Kremer when the Orioles just need some starting pitching right now. They need Dean Kremer to step up after a really, really rough 2021 season and then a really unfortunate injury that kept him out for the first 2 months this year. That is a really good sign from Kremer. And the bullpen let the Royals back into that game on Sunday, but still got the victory. And it was nice to see Dean get a win on the board in 2022. But Dean Kremer and Tyler Wells, good starts over the weekend, but weren't the only young players who made a good impression on the Orioles. In fact, speaking of a 2022 debut, it was Richie Martin who made a great impression for the O's this weekend. as he got called up because of an injury. But we'll talk about what Martin did and what his future with the O's could be and why it looks a little more positive coming up here in just a second. But first, our next partner has a product I use literally every day, and that's Athletic Greens. Now, I started taking AG1 because, I want to have better gut health, which I've struggled with, wanted more energy, wanted an optimized immune system as well. You heard me all of last week. Didn't have a lot of voice if you listen to the pod. AG1 can help with that. And so you might ask, which is what I asked at the beginning too, what is this stuff? Well, with one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. And it's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, whatever it may be. AG1 fits your lifestyle, and it costs you less than $3 a day. And you're investing in your health. And it's got so many testimonies. You don't have to just take it from me. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews. So right now it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So we're talking Orioles and Royals as they split a 4-game series. Got my 3 big takeaways from the weekend. I'll get to my second big takeaway having to do with Richie Martin in just a second. But first, got to tell you about something else going on here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I know many of you, if not all of you, are baseball fans, but I know a lot of you are basketball fans as well. And the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft starts June 16th. With over 50 insiders, nothing equals the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. The Locked On NBA Big Board draft experts, plus the Odyssey insiders. First pick is June 16th. Search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow now so you don't miss a pick. So we're talking Richie Martin and the Orioles. Listen, here's the stat for you. Here's your stat of the day on Locked On Orioles. The Orioles are undefeated in 2022 with Richie Martin in the lineup. That's because, well, they were kind of forced to call him up on Saturday. Ramon Urias, who was originally in the lineup on Friday night for the Orioles, was scratched late from the lineup. Turns out after the game, he felt some more oblique soreness while taking BP. Remember, he had a bit of an oblique issue earlier this year, back in April. Never went on the IL, missed about 3 or 4 games, didn't have an IL stint, and came back. He said it's not the exact same part of his body, but it's close to it with that oblique. So this time they just said, let's shut him down, go to the 10-day IL, and reevaluate after that. So Ramon Urias, who was swinging a hotter bat recently, is on the injured list. So the O's needed an infielder. And of course, earlier this week, they had DFA'd Chris Owings. The Orioles officially released Chris Owings on Sunday, so he is out of the organization. So they had to go to AAA Norfolk to find an infielder. And, a guy who's been up earlier this year in Rylan Bannon could have been the choice. But the Orioles went with Richie Martin because, frankly, he's been having a really good year at AAA. Now, we know Martin since 2019 when the Orioles brought him over in the first overall pick of the Rule 5 draft from the Oakland Athletics, former first-round pick who had a lot of promise, but the bat just never came around. And the O's held on to him. They kept him in the big leagues for the entirety of 2019, played most of the year as the O's starting shortstop, was horrendous in the first half offensively, but was above average as a hitter in the second half in 2019. But then he, breaks his wrist in summer camp in 2020, misses all of the shortened 2020 season, starts the year in AAA last year, has another wrist injury, misses a big chunk of the year, does come up to the bigs near the end of the season, but never really was able to gain a big role on last year's team. And then once again, he had a great spring training, if you remember this year for the O's, but just missed out on making the team. Really, it was Chris Owings who made the team over Richie Martin. Still can't understand that one. But Martin had to spend the first 2 months of the year in AAA, and all he did was hit. And, his numbers in AAA this year, 41 games for the Tides in 186 plate appearances for Martin. He hit .294 with a .382 on base and .442 slugging. Now, he had only 1 home run. We know he's not a power hitter, but 13 doubles. And yeah, he struck out a good amount, 41 Ks in 41 games, just 17 walks. But, He played a pretty good shortstop, played some second base, also played some outfield, which the Orioles tried to get him to do some last year. And he was also 17 for 19 stealing bases as well. So he was showing a lot of parts of his game. And the O's said, you know what? Without Chris Owings, it would be nice to have another guy who's mainly a shortstop, which is what Martin is, to go along with Jorge Mateo, especially because, Ramon Urias without Chris Owings is the number 2 shortstop. And so with Urias on the IL and Owings DFA'd, the O's really only had one guy who seriously can play short on the roster. That's Jorge Mateo. So you basically have to bring up someone who can play short. And because Rylan Bannon really can't play shortstop, it was kind of a no-brainer to go to Richie Martin because Terrin Vavra not quite ready to go yet, still kind of rehabbing, although he is back in AAA after that injury. So they go to Martin, and here you are. You're in the lineup on Saturday. You get called up. Not only that, you're making your first career start in the big leagues at second base because Mateo got the start at shortstop. And Martin had a pretty good day on Saturday. He goes 1 for 4 with a single, but he had 3 hard hit balls. Hit a ball 104, hit one at 99, hit one at 97. Did strike out once, but it was pretty nice to see him, lace a ball into center field past the shortstop for a base hit. He had 2 lineouts as well that he hit right on the nose. And you're thinking, hey, nice little debut for Richie Martin. Then all of a sudden on Sunday, well, his bat looked good. You give Jorge Mateo Sunday off, and you start Martin at shortstop in the Sunday game. And Richie Martin, he probably had the best single game of his big league career in terms of offensive performance on Sunday. Martin goes 3 for 5 with 2 triples, 2 RBIs, did strike out once, but he scored 3 runs. He had 3 hard hit balls once again, hit a ball 100.6, hit a ball at 99.7, hit a ball at 98, and even hit a ball at 92.8. His one non-hard hit ball on the day was still just shy of 95. He was smoking the baseball this weekend. So he ends the weekend with a 4 for 9 with 6 hard hit balls, 2 triples, and really a huge triple in the game on Sunday. It was a 2-run triple in the 7th that made it a 9-3 game, and the Orioles really needed those 2 extra runs. They ended up being the winning runs because it was 7-3 when he hit it, then 9-3, and the Royals ended up scoring 7 runs by the end of the game. And, he did make an error that kind of cost Dean Kremer a bit in the 6th inning of the Sunday game playing shortstop, but he made some really good plays at both positions. He made a great play Saturday at second base that actually ended the game on a ground ball up the middle, kind of shaded back towards shallow center field, gloved it with a backhand and threw kind of fading away from the bag, made a really strong throw to first that got the final out of the game for the O's for that 6-4 win on Saturday, and made some nice plays at short on Sunday. And you're looking at Richie Martin, you're going, yeah, okay, it's a 2-game sample size. We're going to need to see a lot more, and we'll get to see him more throughout this week as Urias stays on the injured list. But you're starting to think, first of all, why in the world was Chris Owings on this team all year over Richie Martin? I'm not a big Richie Martin fan. I've said this on the pod many times. I don't think his bat's going to play in the big leagues. It certainly played this weekend. And I still stick to that. I don't think long-term his bat plays in the big leagues. And I was even on opening day kind of agreeing with Owings over Martin. But after you see Chris Owings for the first 3 weeks to a month of the season, you got to make that move to bring up Martin. And I just don't understand why that didn't happen. But I digress, especially since Martin can play short, can play second, can play the outfield. He's versatile. Oh, well. Anyway, I don't think Martin's going to hit like this. I don't think he's going to have a bunch of 3-hit games. I don't think he's going to have a bunch of stretches where he has 3 hard hit balls every single game. Royals pitching isn't exactly great. But at the end of the day, this was an impressive 2-game stretch. And he's not going to play every day because you still got, Odor at second and Nevin at third and Mateo at shortstop. So Martin's kind of filtering in among those guys where he can. But if he keeps hitting like this, when Urias comes back, he's not going to take Urias' spot. But there's going to be a tough decision to make because, Tyler Nevin's playing well, hit that big 3-run homer. He stays on the team. But, Jorge Mateo has been elite defensively. He's stealing all these bases, but he's not hitting right now. And Martin steals bases. Martin plays good defense. And Martin's hitting. And if he keeps hitting, there could be an interesting conversation to be had. But that's for down the road. Right now, just happy for Richie Martin, really, that he had this good of a weekend. And we'll continue to see him as the O's go to Toronto. But we got one more big takeaway from the weekend coming up, and it has to do with Adley Rutschman, who finally on Saturday, he overshadowed Richie Martin, because he finally had his breakout game in the bigs. We'll talk about that coming up in just a second. But first, let's talk about betonline.net, which is your number one source for all your betting stats and your sports info. You can find all of the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup. Celtics, Warriors, tied at 2, pivotal game 5 tonight. How about the NHL Stanley Cup Finals? We know who it's going to be now. It's the Lightning and the Avalanche. One of the most just exciting Stanley Cup Finals I can remember in a while. These two teams are absolutely ridiculously talented. I cannot wait for the Stanley Cup Finals. Of course, we got Major League Baseball and the latest fighting news from MMA to UFC and boxing. And BetOnline is your covered source and your continued source for all your sports wagering info, including live betting, even esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action at BetOnline, where the game starts. So we finish up with my third and final big takeaway from the Orioles weekend, where they split a 4-game series with the Kansas City Royals, winning the final 2 games of the weekend. And the final big takeaway is that everybody can sigh of relief, wipe the sweat off the brow. Adley Rutschman finally had his breakout game in the big leagues. And he had been struggling pretty mightily, been hitting under 200. At bats looking solid, but the hit's not falling. Well, that all changed on Saturday. And really, remember, it started on Friday. He had a double in Friday's game, 1 for 3 with a double, hit the ball hard. And, listen, I get that he went 0 for 4 with 3 Ks and a walk on Sunday. He didn't really follow it up Sunday with another good game. That's okay. That's okay. Saturday was so good that nothing else matters. Adley Rutschman on Saturday in the Orioles 6-4 win. 3 for 4, 2 doubles, 2 runs scored, 4 hard hit balls, and scored from third on a wild pitch, evading a tag on a flip to home that beat him to the plate. The ball beat him by a good 5, 6, 7 feet, slid under a tag for a huge insurance run for the O's late in the game. Here's the exit velocities for Adley Rutschman. 110, that's his hardest in his big league career. 108, 106.2, and 95.3. He was smoking the baseball. Even the one out in the 3 for 4 was a 106 mile per hour laser to center field that Michael A. Taylor made a nice catch on, kind of hit it right to him as well. Adley hit it hard from the left side, hit it hard from the right side. Remember, in Saturday's game, the Kansas City pitcher was Daniel Lynch, a left-hander, and Adley smoked him 3 different times from the right side of the plate and then smoked one from the left side of the plate later in the game as well. It was fun to watch. He continued to catch well. He was behind the dish Friday and Sunday, DH'd in the Saturday game. And that was kind of the other cool point of this as well is we really got to focus on the bat on Saturday because, after catching Friday, catching Sunday, he was the DH Saturday when he had the 3 for 4 day. So didn't have to worry about catching, just was focused on hitting all day. And it worked out with a 3 for 4. I mean, the bat speed he showed really in the Friday and Saturday games, including the double on Friday night, was just ridiculous. And we know he has great bat speed and awesome swing from both sides of the plate. It was just great to see because he's had a great approach. He's leading all MLB qualified rookies in pitches per plate appearance this year. He's still seeing a lot of pitches. He's seeing his strike zone well. At the end of the day, it all finally paid off in Saturday's game. And I get that he went 0 for 4 with 3 Ks the next day, but he did draw a walk. We're going to see more games like Saturday than games like Sunday moving forward. And I can't wait to see more of it, as this is the start of the turnaround. We talked about how Bobby Witt and Julio Rodriguez, the other 2 top prospects in baseball, were really, really struggling over their first 15 games or so. Then they broke out. Now Julio is one of the best hitters in baseball. We saw Bobby Witt this weekend. He's now solid. I think that's coming for Adley, and I think he's getting more towards the Julio Rodriguez, where he's going to be the best hitter in the O's lineup maybe a month from now. But really fun to see Adley finally break it out and help the O's to win in the final 2 games of that series in Kansas City. But Orioles baseball does not stop as they leave KC, and they will head north of the border starting tonight for a 4-game series against the Toronto Blue Jays. Somehow, some way, it's June 13th. And the Orioles will be playing the Blue Jays for the first time this season in Toronto. Kind of a weird scheduling quirk, but that's where we are. So that means, as we know with the new rules this year in Major League Baseball, unvaccinated players are not able to travel to Toronto to play in these games. There was an exemption for Major League Baseball players last year that allowed unvaccinated guys to still travel to Toronto for 2021 games when the Blue Jays finally got back to Toronto late in the year. But we're going to find out who on the Orioles is not vaccinated, because the Orioles are going to place, it looks like, at least 2 players on the restricted list prior to Monday's game. Those guys will not travel to Toronto with the team, and they're able to be replaced on the roster, but they won't be playing in this pretty important 4-game series against the Blue Jays. And, we heard Brandon Hyde talk about it late in the week, last week, and he basically said that they're expecting more than one player. He said expecting multiple players to not travel. And, most of us obviously have some sort of idea of who 1 or 2 of those players could be. But one thing we do know is who the O's are going to be traveling with as extra players. Now, not all of these guys are going to be activated, but the Orioles added 4 players to their taxi squad in Kansas City on Sunday, because you had to get the players to KC on Sunday to be with the team so they could all then go to Toronto together and cross the border into Canada. So the 4 players they added were 2 pitchers. Mike Baumann, who we've obviously seen multiple times this year, top 10 O's prospect, has struggled a little bit in AAA recently, but we've seen some flashes at the big league level. Rico Garcia, who is finally fully healthy after Tommy John surgery. He was in the big leagues with the Giants a couple years ago. O's signed him to a minor league deal this offseason, been rehabbing for the first 2 months, finally back and good to go. Anthony Bemboom is there. Now, that does not mean that either Robinson Chirinos or Adley Rutschman are unvaccinated. If you have a taxi squad, per MLB rules, you have to have a catcher with you on the taxi squad, no matter what. Now, the O's have traveled with Bo Taylor most of the time this year. They've chosen Bemboom this time. I don't think it really means anything, hopefully not towards Chirinos or Rutschman's vaccination status, but Bemboom coming does not mean that a catcher is definitely unvaccinated. It just means when you have a taxi squad, you always have to include a catcher, so it will be Bemboom. And then the most exciting name is Kyle Stowers, who will be traveling with the Orioles to Toronto. Now, again, we don't know if any of these 4 players will be on the active roster. They'll be with the O's, they'll be on the taxi squad, but they're not necessarily on the active roster for these 4 games, but Stowers will be traveling. So what that makes you realize is that the O's aren't going to put a top prospect in Kyle Stowers on the taxi squad unless they think they're going to need to use him, which tells me that an outfielder is probably unvaccinated. And from what we learned last year, there's a potential that it could be Anthony Santander, because he had some issues with vaccination status last year when he was going on the COVID IL for being a close contact and how long he was on that list. Again, we don't know who it could be, but it tells me that the O's do seem to think that one of their outfielders will not be going to Toronto. And the fact that Baumann and Garcia are there makes me think definitely at least 1 pitcher, potentially 2 pitchers, are not going to be in Toronto. Now, one thing we do know is that the Orioles have named their 4 starters for the week in Zimmerman and Bradish and Jordan Lyles and Tyler Wells. So we know the whole starting rotation doesn't have to worry about it. Obviously, Dean Kremer as well, but he pitched Sunday, so he won't pitch in this series. So it looks like probably 1, maybe 2 relievers will not be with the Orioles as well. Of course, we'll find out who that is. It's unfortunate. It's disappointing that players are still not vaccinated from COVID-19 at this point. You're not just letting down, obviously, the health of yourself and those around you, but you're letting down your teammates because you're not getting to travel for these divisional games for a 4-game series. And it's obviously the extra layer of you have multiple immunocompromised players in the clubhouse, Trey Mancini and Cedric Mullins, and immunocompromised family members. Of course, we heard the great stories of Jorge Lopez's son being able to watch him pitch the last couple of weeks. Just disappointing that there's going to be players, but we'll address it on tomorrow's episode. It looks like the way Brandon Hyde said, it's going to be at least 2 players who won't be traveling with the Orioles to Toronto. And we come back tomorrow. We'll talk about who those players were. We'll recap game 1 of the series between the O's and the Blue Jays, get you all the O's news and analysis you need right here on the pod, coming up again tomorrow. But until then, I'm Connor Newcomb, and this has been the Locked On Orioles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.